Athletics have always played an important role at Nocona High School, a small school in a community of about 3,000 people in Nocona, Texas. The school has produced more than its share of important people in the world of sports, including Bob Story, who in 62 years at Nocona Leather Goods made changes to baseball and football equipment that is still in use today. Of course, no conversation about sports in Nocona is complete without mentioning the Nocona Nugget Jack Crane from the class of 1938, a member of the University of Texas Sports Hall of Fame. There is someone from Nocona High's past that may not be as familiar to the 250 or so students that roam the halls today. Someone who did something in Major League Baseball only 22 other men have done as of the making of this video in 2023. His name was Charlie Robertson. Nocona's graduating class of 1915 had some interesting options when they took the first steps into their future. Some would go to work locally, possibly for H.J. Justin and Sons making boots, or on the Missouri-Kansas-Texas Railroad. Charlie and a few others would continue their education, with Robertson opting to attend Austin College in Sherman, Texas, where he studied to enter the ministry. Robertson would play football and basketball at Austin College, but it was on the baseball team where he really shined. Robertson caught the eye of the Sherman team in the low-level Western Association and signed to play with them in 1917 while still taking classes at Austin College. At one point, Robertson pitched shutouts in both games of a doubleheader against the Ardmore, Oklahoma team, and finished the season winning 23 of 27 starts. Robertson was so impressive that after his graduation from Austin College in 1918, the Chicago White Sox invited him to spring training in Mineral Wells, Texas. While he still looked good, White Sox manager Pance Rowland and coach Kid Gleason thought he was not quite ready for the big leagues and assigned him to the minor league Minneapolis Millers of the American Association. Robertson performed well in Minneapolis with an impressive 1.94 ERA in 9 games before enlisting in the U.S. Army as non-essential workers were told to work or fight during World War I. Robertson saw no combat and returned to baseball in Minnesota when the war was over. Charlie continued to pitch well and was called up to the Chicago White Sox early in the season in 1919, with Kid Gleason in place as the new manager. The year 1919 was a significant one in White Sox history. That was the year of the infamous Black Sox scandal, when 8 White Sox players were accused of conspiring with gamblers to purposely lose the World Series to the Cincinnati Reds. Though the participation of some of the 8 players is disputed, and they were found not guilty by a grand jury, they were all banned for life from Major League Baseball. Of course, Charlie Robertson played no part in the scandal and was barely a footnote in the White Sox 1919 season. In his one appearance for the team on May 13th, he pitched 2 innings, gave up 2 runs, struck out 1 batter, and took the loss. Robertson was then sent back to Minnesota. For the next 3 years, the 6-foot-tall right-hander dwelled in the minor leagues, hoping to earn another chance with the big league club. That finally came in 1922 when Gleason made him part of the opening day roster, plugging him in as the number 3 starter. The White Sox were largely dismantled after the gambling scandal, and in days long before free agency were still trying to piece together a winning team. Their attempts to put young players like Robertson and pitcher Ted Blankenship with veterans like catcher Ray Schalk and second baseman Eddie Collins had mixed results, with the team finishing 5th in what was then an 8-team league. However, it would only be 15 games into the 1922 season that baseball history would be made. On April 30th, 1922, manager Kid Gleason gave the ball to Nocona's Charlie Robertson against the Tigers at Detroit's Navin Field. It was Charlie's 4th big league start and 5th appearance overall with the White Sox. Despite the Tigers' eventual 3rd-place finish in 1922, their lineup was full of great hitters. Along with players like Bobby Beach, Topper Rigney, and Harry Heilman, there was a legendary Ty Cobb. The veteran outfielder was in the last few years of a Hall of Fame career that would see him credited with 90 Major League Baseball records, including most batting titles and most career hits. Now serving as a player-manager, Cobb was known for being vicious both on and off the field, and it's not likely he gave a second thought to the 26-year-old from Monte County, Texas, when he took the field that day. It's also recorded history that Ty Cobb would not forget the name Charlie Robertson the rest of his life. The first inning went quickly, with both the White Sox and Tigers failing to get a base runner. Chicago would come out better in the second inning when they scored the only runs of the game. Detroit pitcher Herman Pallette walked White Sox right fielder Harry Hooper to start the inning, followed by left fielder Johnny Mostel getting the game's first hit, a single to put runners on first and second. After center fielder Amos Shrunk laid down a sacrifice bunt to move the runners to second and third, Hooper and Mostel both scored on a single by first baseman Earl Sheely. Under normal circumstances, a game where all the scoring happens in the second inning wouldn't make much of a story. On this day in 1922, it most certainly would. The Tigers failed to get a hit off Robertson in the bottom of the second and again in the bottom of the third. After 3 innings, the Tigers had not had a base runner. Cobb asked umpires to examine one of the balls after the 8th consecutive out, possibly as a tactic to simply throw Robertson off his game. The umpires found nothing suspicious on the ball, and the game continued. So did the outs. While the White Sox added 5 more hits to the total in the game, along with getting base runners due to another walk and an error by Detroit, the Tigers failed to reach base. Frustrated, Cobb asked umpires to examine the ball 2 more times, and in the 8th inning, after Cobb himself struck out looking, he demanded to inspect Robertson's uniform himself to see if the rookie had hidden grease or some other foreign matter. Neither Cobb nor the umpires found anything unusual, and Robertson continued to pitch. It would later be said that most of the outs in the game were standard fielding plays, with nothing spectacular needed to get the outs. That came to an end in the 9th inning when, with 2 outs, pinch hitter Johnny Bassler looped a fly ball to shallow left field. Mostel, who had been playing near the line, ran forward and had to dive to make the catch for the final out. The game was over, and the Tigers failed to get a hit, a walk, or reach base due to a Chicago error. Charlie Robertson had faced 27 batters in the game and had not allowed a single base runner, striking out 6 batters himself. In those early days of American League Baseball, some of the fans at Navin Field were separated from the playing surface by little more than a rope. After the final out, with those in attendance well aware of what had happened, fans easily stormed the field and created the odd side of carrying the opposing pitcher off the field on their shoulders. After his diving catch, Mostel was quickly surrounded by fans, one of which grabbed the ball out of his hand. Manager Kid Gleason took a batting practice ball and presented it to Robertson as the game ball. What happened to the actual game ball, no one knows. This kind of pitching performance had only been accomplished 4 times before in the then 46-year history of Major League Baseball. While a no-hitter was uncommon, not allowing a base runner at all was so rare baseball didn't officially have a name for it at the time of Robertson's performance against Detroit. According to the book Unhittable by James Buckley Jr. and Phil Pepe, it was a Chicago sports writer that used the term perfect game when describing Robertson's game against the Tigers. The term caught on and is still used today to describe the feat that has only been accomplished 18 more times since 1922. Ty Cobb remained less than impressed. The indignant player-manager insisted Robertson had cheated, sending 3 balls used during the game to American League President Van Johnson. Despite Johnson dismissing any claims, Cobb would stand firm in his accusations. He also stood alone. Robertson would go on to the best season of his career in 1922, taking a no-hitter into the 8th inning on June 13th against the Boston Red Sox, but having to settle for a 2-hit shutout. Robertson finished the season with a 14-15 record, a 3.64 ERA, 3 shutouts, and 83 strikeouts. The next 3 seasons were tumultuous ones for Robertson, which included a threatened holdout, injuries, and nearly being traded to the New York Yankees. Robertson was waived by the White Sox after the 1925 season and picked up by the St. Louis Browns. After one dreadful season in St. Louis that saw him sent back to the minor leagues, Robertson was picked up by the Boston Braves, where he finished out his career after 2 seasons. Robertson never won more games in a single season than he lost, and finished his 8-year career with 49 wins and 80 losses. Today, the uniform Charlie Robertson wore when he pitched his perfect game is displayed in the National Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. Robertson's overall career was less than spectacular, but for one day in 1922, he was perfect. Robertson carved in stone his place in baseball history, as well as quietly reserving a special place in the history of Nocona High School.